Moritz und ich war Cello.
Haben wir ein bisschen gehört, hat was erklärt.
Getanzt.
Warum?
Ich habe so gemacht.
I have to say first, I was a little skeptical. I thought it was very radical and very strange to imagine how one could work with hearing impaired children about music.
So Feel the Music is a Landings MCO outreach project.
It's a tour-based project, a project that integrates the Mahler Chamber Orchestra with deaf children to give them experience with feeling music.
And how we can make this experience tangible for a child who has potentially never heard a sound in their entire life.
I think that they don't have any preconceptions. They're extremely open-minded and extremely willing to learn.
It was very foreign to us in the beginning to imagine how we could communicate and what we could communicate. I mean, everything was open. That was also very interesting.
First of all, a group of 4 musicians from the Mahler Chamber Orchestra go on a 2 or 3 day mini project to a school.
We meet a class of children. They can be with partial hearing, they can hear quite a bit, or they can be profoundly deaf.
On day 1, we ourselves get a tutorial from Paul Whitaker, who's a specialist on working with music and deaf children.
Paul Whitaker is himself a deaf musician, and he's been working with deaf children and trying to connect deaf children with music for the last 20 years.
He has fantastic insight into how the children will react and what they need from us and what we can do to help them perceive the music better.
We really try to show all the human aspects of the music, you know, what the music shows us in terms of emotion, sheer emotion. And we play different music for them and show to them that this conveys different emotions. You know, the music can seem angry, it can seem mild, it can seem tender.
Die Kinder waren von Anfang an sehr begeistert dabei bei dem Projekt. Besonders hier auch bei dem Workshop. Es war sehr gut, dass das am Anfang stattfand, diese 2 oder 3 Tage, wo die diesen ganz engen Kontakt mit Paul hatten und eben auch mit den Musikern hatten und wo sie selber ganz viel machen konnten.
We introduced them to literally feeling the music, the sound waves that music produces. So we play something on our instruments and they come and they touch the instruments.
Basically getting them to come as close as they can in all their senses to sound, to music.
For instance, with my instrument, the wind, the air coming out of the instrument, the vibrations that there are from the instrument, and we also let them experience playing the instruments.
They can feel the sound waves coming out of the string instruments, for example. The double bass is particularly fascinating because the sound waves that it produces are much more easy to feel.
Often people don't realize an instrument vibrates a lot when it's being played, and that's an incredible touch stimulation for if a child touches the trumpet or the underside of a cello. They can have a very strong reaction, emotional reaction to that.
On the second project day, then the kids come to the concert hall. They then meet Leif Ove. He shows them what he can do on the piano, the sort of moods and feelings he can create on the piano. He also shows them how the piano works.
When I meet the children, I introduce them to the piano, my instrument. I get them to feel the strings. That's always a sensational thing for them because there's so much vibration in this instrument. And they also crawl under the piano and feel the soundboard, which is really where the vibration of the instrument happens and where the sound happens. And that's a real discovery for them. They're very excited about that. And then at the end they get to play the piano.
And at some point during that tour, on a concert day in the concert hall, the same class come in to the tutti orchestra rehearsal situation.
And we have them sitting a little bit in the orchestra, so maybe someone's next to me, there are people next to the percussionist, and then there'll be people with the timpanist and people maybe a bit with Leif Ove.
I introduce the orchestra for them. I explain here are wind instruments, string instruments, you know, somebody hitting the timpani.
Leif Ove Andsnes gives them a very quick conducting lesson again, just to remind them what we've taught them.
It's really interesting also to see then if a child discovers the possibilities of communication within what he or she can do with gestures and with the face and looking at certain groups of instruments.
And often that's moments when they bring their arm down for the very first time and 50 musicians suddenly react. It's nice to watch.
This is ultimately so much about communication.
You get over the barriers.
I personally think music for deaf children is as important as music for normal hearing children.
I mean, that's also, I can communicate with them by making music.
So what was intriguing about it was to redefine and to reflect upon what music is.
I had to rethink a lot of aspects of music and of life with this project.
I think that this is a project which thinks extremely outside the box. It's putting deaf children and music together is not something that you'd just decide on. It's unusual, I think, and that's why it's particularly good for MTO, because that's the sort of project that we really want to do.
Hast du da auch was gefühlt oder hast du gehört?
Mir und ihr
Ja?
machen. Alle waren lieb und schön.
Kannst du das Spiel nochmal erklären? Wie ging das genau?
Also,
Was hast du denn probiert?
Was? Und den und die Tantins.
Möchtest du ein Instrument lernen?
Ja,
Welches ist das Liebste, was du lernen möchtest?
Kamir und Rommel
Und war das schwer oder war das einfach?
mit der. Und ich möchte nochmal wieder kommen.